Hello. In trigonometry, we are also working with the angle of elevation and the angle of depression. So if we look at the word elevation, an elevator is a lift, isn't it? It takes you upwards. So elevate means to be taken up. And depression, if we say something like, I feel depressed, then it means I feel down. So then it means looking downwards. So what that really means, if you look at this drawing, let's say we've got a tower and you are standing on the ground and in the way, and you look up to the tip of the tower, then angle X is what we call the angle of elevation. Okay, so angle of elevation is always upwards. All right, that's why I put the arrow down there. Then imagine you would stand on the tower and you would look at somebody who's standing on the ground. Then you would look from there, the horizontal line downwards. Then that is the angle of depression. Okay, so angle of depression is looking from a horizontal downwards. Okay, and angle of elevation is looking from an horizontal upwards. Okay, and if you now look at this drawing, since we are working with the horizontals, these two must also be parallel lines, because they are both horizontal, and then therefore this angle, which is the angle of depression, must be equal to the angle of elevation, because they are alternating angles between parallel lines. So here is quite a lot of information, all right? In both cases, the angle of elevation and depression is each time starting from the horizontal, elevation upwards, depression downwards. And remember, because we've got two horizontal lines, they must be parallel, and therefore we also have angles between parallel lines. So sometimes you will use that for solving problems. Okay, now let's look at an example. If they tell you that the tower is 30-meter high, you are standing on the ground and you are looking upwards, and that at an angle of 35 degrees. So that's the angle of elevation. No? That's the angle of elevation looking upwards is 35 degrees. And they're asking you, what is the distance between the tower and yourself? So this distance is being asked. Okay, then once again, people, we sit with a right-angled triangle. Okay, this is the one line, this is the second line, and the red line is the third line. So because we are working with a right-angled triangle, remember the first thing is to identify the hypotenuse. Now, we've written it down, people. First one is ID, the hypotenuse. Okay, then because we are working with an angle, we are now going to use the trigonometric ratios, isn't it? As soon as an angle is involved, we're working with the trigonometric ratios. And I taught you, then you go and you color the two lines that make up the relevant angle. Okay, you cover that. So we have already got the hypotenuse. Then remember the other angle that is colored is the adjacent, and then the third side is the opposite. So in step 2, after having identified the hypotenuse, you identify the adjacent, and then you identify the opposite after coloring the two lines that make up the angle. Okay, and then in the third step, I taught you to write SOHCAHTOA, the abbreviation, and now let's look at what is given and what is being asked. Okay, so the 30 meter is the opposite side. So we tick the opposite side. We also got the angle, which means we are going to tick sin, cos, and tan because that is the ratios at a specific angle. And then we see that A is question. A is question. All right, and then we choose the ratio where each letter has a sign or a symbol, a tick or a question mark. So we are going to use the tan of 35 degrees, which is the opposite divided by adjacent. So the opposite side is 30, okay, and the adjacent side is what is being asked. All right, now people, we have written the formula, we have substitute our values. If you now look at that, this is what is the variable. So let's take it over to the other side, okay? So that becomes A, and then we're going to take 10 over to that side, which becomes 30 over 10, 35. Okay? That is Goro is OO, isn't it? Goro is OO. Okay, and then you simply put that into your calculator. You've got 30 divided by 10, 35, okay, equals, and that's 42. A is 42.84, so that we can leave as 42.8 meters because the tower is also meters. Right, so angle of elevation and angle of depression, people, is very, very often just the trigonometric ratios. And then remember, getting the same angles, the two horizontals which are parallel, so we are having angles between parallel lines. All right, I hope that you now got these steps. You first identify the hypotenuse, thereafter you identify the adjacent and the opposite by coloring the angled lines with a color, people, so that you can get the adjacent first. The third side is the opposite. Then you write your trigonometric ratios, and once you've got the formula, people, we do it like in all other mathematics, okay? Got the formula, you substitute values, you do Goro's OO, and you do your calculation. Okay,